Hello, this is Darrell Castle with today's Castle Report. This is Friday, the 8th day of November in the year of our Lord 2024. I will be talking about the most obvious topic in the world today, and that is the presidential election. What does the overwhelming Trump victory over Kamala Harris and the entire woke agenda mean, or at least what does it mean to me? Doomsday averted for now. What does that mean? It means that certain burdens the nation had been bearing for many years can now perhaps be lifted. There is at least hope they can be lifted. This election was about those burdens, and the American people just do not want them anymore. Completely open borders with nations such as El Salvador, Venezuela, Mexico, emptying their prisons and their insane asylums onto our border, murderers and rapists invited into the country to prey on Americans with no accountability for their crimes, little boys, little girls, sexually mutilated because of the parents' mental illness or their school's mental illness. Despite decades of legal effort to ensure girls have equal opportunity for school sports, they were totally disregarded, while men who said they were women were invited into their locker rooms. Costly wars that threaten our future with no benefit to the American people at all. Crime rampant, out of control in our once beautiful cities. Businesses closing because in many places shoplifting, car theft are no longer even crimes. I could go on and on, but those are at least some of the things that a large majority of voters rejected. But many on the left wail and ask, why don't the people want these things anymore as we do? The headlines in the New York Post on Wednesday read like this: he's done it again. Yes, he's done it again. This man, Donald Trump, has completed a historic comeback despite very long odds. His determination, perseverance in the face of such hatred, his strength is rare for anyone, especially rare for a 78-year-old man, viciously attacked from day one of his first term, I suppose, because the woke army would not surrender easily. 2 attempts to impeach him, political assassination attempts, then 2 literal assassination attempts, lawfare attacks from corrupt prosecutors, an extremely corrupt Department of Justice, aided by a very corrupt FBI. Despite all those persecutions, the American people seemed to see through them, and they stuck with him. He was facing a long string of legal actions once he decided and announced he would run again. His enemies mobilized the corrupt state-owned media and the various government agencies, including the Department of Justice and the FBI, in an effort to stop him, but nothing stopped him. His coalition included the reliable Republican base of white men, Protestant Christians, but he made significant inroads into traditionally Democrat strongholds as well. Harris could not rely, as Democrats always do, on the base of black men, Hispanics, as Trump made strong inroads into both. His efforts among black Americans and Hispanic Americans apparently made the difference in many cities and states. His remarks in his victory address were words of inclusion and healing. Quote, "This was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. This is a magnificent victory for the American people that will allow us to make America great again," end quote. He went on to add, "We are going to help our country heal. I hope and pray that he is correct and the nation can heal. I hope it can somehow get off the road to war, to inflation, bankruptcy, and insanity. Do Americans really want to continue the same path down the same direction that leads to more and more war? No, thank God it appears they do not. I have my doubts, however, because democracy, usually thought of as the highest form of government, sometimes leads to tyranny. It leads to the tyranny of the majority, the stamping out of individual rights. It leads to a search for equality, which leads to mediocrity instead of excellence. Those are some of the reasons the founders feared democracy, instead built a republic. The Democrats, who usually feel they are in the majority, often try to convince us of our democracy, as they call it, until sometimes we find ourselves saying it as well. This country has spent somewhere between $6 and $8 trillion on wars that no one seems able to define what they have to do with us. No one can explain why we're still fighting them. No one can find any way for us to get out of them. The title of today's report reads, Doomsday Averted for now. By that I mean we are still involved in wars that have nothing to do with us and could not happen without our aid and support. Debt continues to pile up at the rate of more than $8 billion per day, 7 days per week. That means that each day more of your tax dollars, the fruits of your labor, must be paid to various creditors than was paid yesterday. Day after day, the federal government must finance and refinance more and more debt. It's hard to see how Donald Trump or any other human can make this story end well. There are, however, some hopeful signs out there. That's one difference this election makes. A Kamala win would have given us no hope. There would be no hopeful signs, but with Trump and the team he has assembled around him, at least there is hope. For example, Dr. Ron Paul said recently in one of his Liberty reports that Elon Musk asked him to help cut $2 trillion from federal spending. Dr. Paul said, the last thing I need right now is another job, but I would be willing to help in any way I can. It will be difficult to cut anything because only about 28% of federal spending is subject to cuts. The other 72% is already committed, already spent. In other words, the federal government is committed long-term to spending about $2 trillion more each year than it can extract from us. It is necessary to cut spending if inflation is to be curtailed and our fiscal train is to be kept on the rails a little longer. More spending means more dollars in circulation, thus devaluing each one and causing prices to rise. I remain guardedly optimistic that some of the people in Trump's administration that he has promised he would allow to oppose deep state interest will in fact succeed. Old friend and economist Bill Bonner doesn't believe they will succeed because, well, I suppose it's because Bill is a student of history. He believes the quote from Shakespeare, quote, there are tides in the affairs of men, end quote. He applies that quote to today's world, and he concludes that those tides apply to politics as well. Powerful currents that have a life of their own. These currents are not driven by what people want or what they think. Instead, like an unrelenting river, they carve the valleys, shape the stones, and erode the shorelines of human thought. This all leads, as Bill sees it, to this conclusion, quote, and now, in what direction does the water flow? Whatever it is, the president is elected to follow, not to lead. He drifts with the primary political trend. He doesn't create it, end quote. Well, Bill's assessment is dead on. What happened in the last Trump administration when he added more debt than any president in history. Will it be different this time? I believe it will. I pray that it will. Those around Trump, Robert Kennedy, Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, among others, give me reason to hope. I'll tell you this, at least with Trump, we know who the president is. We know that leadership is not in the hands of some unelected, unseen group of people that we don't even know who they are. No committee will answer the 3 a.m. phone call for Donald Trump. Kamala Harris would have removed all hope from this country, but with Trump, we can at least hope that things will improve. I haven't said much about this war to this point, but it is ultimate doomsday. The participation of the U.S. in other people's struggles, other people's ambitions, which could not happen without U.S. help and encouragement, must stop. Trump has promised many times to stop the wars if elected. Now he has been elected, so we will see what happens. It is difficult, perhaps impossible, to get the economy under control and headed upwards unless the wars are brought under control and headed downward. War is the biggest, most dangerous threat to humanity today because it threatens human existence on a planetary scale. It pleases the globalist depopulation agenda, but it does not please most sane people. To prevent any hope of peace from developing, just last Saturday, the Department of Defense announced a new round of expenses and commitments to the Middle East wars. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has ordered the deployment of several additional Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers specializing in ballistic missile defense, as well as fighter squadrons, tanker aircraft, B-52 strategic bombers to the Middle East because tensions are continuing to mount. I suppose it doesn't occur to any of these people that tensions mount because of U.S. strategic forces deployed to the area and their actions just pour gasoline on smoldering coals. Quote, From Air Force Major General Patrick Ryder, quote, should Iran, the partners or its proxies, use this moment to target American personnel or interests in the region, the United States will take every measure necessary to defend our people, end quote. So the United States is defending itself and its, quote, interests from Iran. It's obvious, isn't it, that the U.S. is really actually in this Middle East war to defend Israel and its interests? Why is the U.S. committed to doing it, if the question of the day, and why, once again, Donald Trump must do something about it? But will he? If the world can just hold together for another 75 days until inauguration, we will see if his word is good and if he can do something about it. The American people then have rejected all those things and have given Trump a mandate to fix them or end them. The news sites are full of stories about the total breakdown of the emotions of Democrats who don't seem to understand why this happened. They say you want cheaper burgers, so you voted for fascism. Well, that demonstrates a total lack of understanding of the problem. I don't mind their weeping. I will admit to some joy in their lamentations. I look at the weeping of Jocelyn Nungare's mother. They can't compare with that. Jocelyn was a happy 12-year-old girl living in Houston until she was kidnapped, gang raped, tortured, strangled, thrown in a river by 5 illegal immigrants invited into this country by Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. So go ahead and cry. Go ahead and lament. Their cries cannot equal the tears of Laken Riley's parents, since she was raped and murdered by an illegal invited in by Kamala and Joe. Bernie Sanders is about the only Democrat I've heard who was close to being right in his assessment. He said the Democrat Party has abandoned working-class people. Bernie's at least partially correct, but he should go one step further and say the Democrat Party hates working-class people. They are much more comfortable around their Hollywood celebrity friends. They seem uncomfortable among ordinary Americans. Many of those celebrity endorsements picked up by Kamala are on Diddy's party list. With her defeat, I imagine they're quite nervous. I'm not suggesting that Trump behave as a Caesar or a Mongol king, driving his enemies before him and enjoying the lamentations of their women, because that would make him just what the Democrat lies say he is. I am suggesting that he make this mandate a complete victory, because it is perhaps the last chance to defeat the deep state and their globalist ambitions. The deciding question is who will serve in key positions in his administration. I hope and pray that no neocon names emerge. We cannot tolerate a repeat of 2016. But with Kennedy, Gabbard, Musk, the assurances he must have given them, I believe it will be different this time. I could do an entire Castle report on the overwhelming evidence that now exists that Kennedy is right about the link between childhood vaccinations and autism, as well as other chronic diseases. The evidence, long suppressed by the U.S. government in conjunction with Big Pharma, is now pouring out. Yes, the rats are running. They're running for their holes now that the lights are being turned on. Finally, folks, almost everything government does is evil, stupid, the opposite of the right thing. The people have given Donald Trump a cutting torch and a mandate to use it. Time will tell if he knows how. At least that's the way I see it. Till next time, folks, this is Darrell Castle. Thanks for listening.